Hey, today I'm talking about three 1999 Joan of Arc movies. And the names of those three films are The Messenger, the story of Joan of Arc, and the two-part Canadian made-for-TV movie simply titled Joan of Arc. First up is The Messenger, the story of Joan of Arc. This is a 1999 film, stars Milla Jovovich, and was directed by Luc Besson. And I kind of went into this with sort of lower expectations because I know this sort of derailed their careers for a while. It wasn't received the best. But honestly, I had a lot of fun with this movie. There's a lot that I really like about it. Firstly, I liked the opening text. It added some context to the story that I honestly did not know. Milla Jovovich, I think she was a very solid lead. The action was really good. It got very bloody and violent, and it just played really well. Not all the effects have aged the best, but I honestly didn't mind it because effects age. It really did truly nail the emotions, which is kind of the most important part of a movie. As long as you're along for the emotional ride, it can kind of do whatever. And it had a very solid cast for sure. It had John Malkovich. Like, how can you not love a movie with John Malkovich? They had a number of French actors too, like Vincent Cassel. Props to giving some actual French characters French actors. Another thing that I really liked is a lot of other stories like to skip past the failure of the battle at Paris, or just not really even show her failures. But this one showed her messing up. It also showed her getting shot in the knee, which is the only film so far that I've seen that shows her getting shot in the knee. There are definitely silly moments within the film. A notable example is when she's on her horse and like she's trying to lead them into battle and Joan screams, but like her voice just cracks so much. She sounds like an angry teenager. So yeah, no, I had a lot of fun with this film. Like, yeah, it had its silly moments, but it's a really solid, just all around great film. I don't know why critics and audience didn't flock to this back in the day, because it really hits all the marks that it needs to hit. So yeah, if you're looking for a good, solid Joan of Arc film, look no further. This is a good, solid Joan of Arc film. Yeah. Next up is Joan of Arc Part 1. Okay, so I could have not divided this into two movies. In total, Part 1 and Part 2 are 3 hours long, which I have watched plenty of 3-hour movies before. But as I was watching it, I felt there was a decline in quality between the two parts. Because I crazy loved Part 1. I feel like Part 2 kind of fell off. So I'm going to start with Part 1 though. Firstly, the lead. The lead is so good. Lily Sobowski. She just freaking crushed it as Joan. She really hit a lot of hallmarks of what I like about a good Joan portrayal. What I particularly loved about her is how much she showed love and compassion to the people, because Joan is really this big folk hero. And so like, how does a folk hero become a folk hero? She gives a shit about the little people, the people who are spreading her myth. She gains their love by giving a shit about them. And we see that so often here. Like, we see her just have these beautiful moments with regular people, and it's so well done. But she's also just so smart and caring and compassionate. That's how you get loved by the people, is by doing all of those things. And we really see her being clever and interesting. Honestly, the movie takes its time showing like the difficulties of how hard it was to just get from one place to the next place, which so many of the other films just like completely skip past. But like, just even her first journey of leaving home, that was a perilous journey. And then going from that first guy, forget his name, the guy with the eggs, to the Dauphin, like that journey was freaking difficult, and they showed that, and I'm like, yes. And I love showing her relationship with her beau knight. Like, they almost did it like sort of like a romance thing, a rom-com type thing of like, oh, they don't like each other at first, but then they slowly learn to see the positive traits of each other and then become like kind of inseparable, essentially. That was really well done. Oh my god, Neil Patrick Harris is in this, and he is the perfect casting as King Charles. Like, oh my god, way to go, Canada, way to go. The casting in general is just fantastic. You also got like Powers Booth as the dad, who was just a very commanding father, and like, I understand why they really expanded his role in this. A lot of the other films don't really have the dad doing a whole lot, but he brought such a presence to it that I don't mind that they really expanded his role. You also got Peter O'Toole, who I did not recognize for the longest time. I'm like, wow, this guy is something else. I'm like, of course, it's Peter O'Toole. That's why he's freaking amazing. So yeah, no, spot on casting all around. I crazy loved this. It's such a great movie, such a great experience. This is definitely one of my favorite Joan of Arc interpretations, and I would without a doubt recommend it. Just for this first half alone, even though it doesn't tell the entire story, it's totally worth a watch to watch at least this half of the movie, because it really truly nails so much of the story. So yes, no, definitely without a doubt would recommend. And lastly is Part 2. It definitely starts strong because it starts off with the second half of the Battle of Orleans. But then I feel like it missed an opportunity by skipping past all of the other battles. Like, they do show the one retreat that happened where like Joan just showed up and the other army just ran away. And like that stuff definitely did happen because the English perceived her as a witch. Her being there was an omen. She just scared the troops. So I do like that they showed that, but I wish they would have showed more of her victories because she had more than just one victory. They did show the failure of Paris, but they didn't show like her getting shot in the knee. They showed like someone else dying, which was kind of fine. But then between like Paris and her getting captured, it really felt like they were just spinning their wheels, going on tangents that didn't really matter. Like there's this whole section with Shirley MacLaine, and I'm a big fan of her in general, but I'm like, why is she in this movie? What is she doing here? This feels like we're getting distracted from the important stuff. And I kind of thought the movie would have mostly focused on the trial, but the trial almost feels like an afterthought. It's barely in the movie. What I disliked about all of the stuff between Paris and her death, really, is that there's this really distinct loneliness feeling that she should have at this time. But we really don't see that, like, especially because she goes back to see her family, which is a good, powerful moment, but also at the same time, I like the idea of her never seeing her family again after leaving to go off on this thing. And just kind of the tragedy that is that. At the very end was solid. As much as I'm complaining, I did still enjoy this movie a good amount. It's a quite like, so it's like a 4 out of 5 for me. But I'm just like, the first half was so good. So I had such high expectations for the second half. Honestly, the first half is kind of a good gold standard, if I'm being really honest. But then the second half, it's a solid experience, but it could have been something incredible. Would I still recommend it though? I would still say yes. Like, even though it does not hit the incredible heights of the first half, it still is a worthwhile experience, especially because it does give you a good full picture of mostly what happened. It does go on tangents and does a lot of stuff that most of the other movies don't do, but it is still a complete story. Definitely watch at least some of these Joan of Arc things because there are some really good stories here. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. I'm going to start off with The Messenger, the story of Joan of Arc, sitting number 78 in the really like section, so it's kind of near the bottom of the really like section. Now jumping to the two-parter, firstly is part 1, obviously, sitting at number 46 in the really like section. It's actually very close to The Trial of Joan of Arc, which is currently my favorite Joan of Arc story. And honestly, I feel like had this one ended post the Battle of Orleans, there's a chance it could have gone above The Trial. And then lastly is Joan of Arc Part 2, sitting at number 97, near the top of the quite like section. Yeah, man, I wanted to like it more, but it had its issues. And this is a total of 243 old movies so far this year.